Welcome to part 2 of chapter 10, the urban world. We've been looking at and talking about in class how urbanization can be detrimental to ecosystems. Urbanization is needed. People have to live somewhere, they have to have shelter, they have to have jobs, they have to have access to certain things. Well, how can we build a city or create less of an impact with that city on an environment? Planning a city is paramount to being able to live and to harmonize with that environment. What we're trying to do by planning is reduce pollution, whether it's water pollution, air pollution, solid waste, and also preserve green spaces in rural areas where agriculture is very important. One way to do that is through compact development. And this is being able to have more multi-family housing areas and basically building up instead of out. So this puts people closer to where their jobs are, puts people closer to where the grocery store is, where schoolings are, the school is available. So that is one way to create green space. If you think about Wellington is called a PUD. It's a planned urban development. And I know I talked about it in class too, but if you think of Old Wellington in particular, before we added the mall, before we added everything that runs along 441, Wellington was made kind of in a triangle, if you want to think about it. Think about the corner of Forest Hill and South Shore. There's a Publix there, CVS, La Fogata, that area. Also incorporated in that is the pool and Village Hall and the amphitheater. Then if you go to Forest Hill and Wellington Trace, that's back where we had Old Mall. There's another business complex there, pharmacy, Dunkin' Donuts, Starbucks, that area. Then go to Wellington Trace and South Shore, and there's a movie theater, Publix, Walgreens, Ace Hardware, U-Ship, those kind of businesses are there in that area. And as Wellington was developed, those three business areas were created, and then the housing areas around them. This allowed for people to actually be able to bike or to walk, made everything in very close proximity to those necessities that they needed day in and day out. So it was to decrease stress on roadways, decrease then carbon emissions, also increase the availability of green space, which they have done. Most every neighborhood in Wellington has its own park, and that's very important, not only for the kids to be able to play, but also increasing green space. Now, how does Wellington do this, or any other city plan development? Well, the first thing they go through is a zoning process, and they set aside areas that have three basic zones. Now, within these three zones that you see here, commercial, residential, and industrial, you can have subcategories as well. But commercial would be anything like a mall. Residential can be anything from apartments to large lots, acreage. Industrial is going to be where people can have auto mechanics, there's large trucks coming in, distribution centers, or manufacturing. Anything that's got a lot of noise, truck traffic, or heavy industry can be there. The only place that we have in Wellington where you can have industrial is out on Pearson Park Road. It's close to Pearson Park, but that whole area up there that has it has commercial condos, I guess that's what they're called, but they allow storage of items in there, so you can have big trucks in there to get things moved. They also allow automotive places, fix your car, that type of thing. So that's the only place that we have. We don't really have anywhere in Wellington that allows manufacturing. And really in Palm Beach County, we don't have that. We don't have manufacturing as an industry. So many of our industrial areas are areas that are suppliers, suppliers for plumbing, suppliers for Costco, different things like that that make up the industrial. Solid waste disposals, usually in an industrial area as well. What we're trying to do with a well thought out or being environmentally friendly is not get suburban sprawl. Suburban sprawl is where you have an urban area, you have this area of a city that has all your commercial, all your banking, all of the needs of the people, and then people want to get a new house, they want a bigger house, they want to live where it's not so congested, and so they start to develop out from the city. And then what happens is that we get kind of a blighted area in the city because it's older, people just don't want to fix it up, and they move to new. And so that actually creates more habitat degradation, so possible loss of wetlands, habitat for critters, loss of percolation down into aquifers, and increases air and water pollution. Air pollution, we've got more people driving further. We have more roads with more runoff, more yards, so it causes more contamination. So we want to prevent this. So how do we make cities more sustainable? We develop a smart growth plan, and those plans also include compact development. You want to efficiently use energy and resources. You want to reduce waste and pollution, incorporate large areas of green space with trees, and most importantly, design it to be people-centered, not car-centered. So we're looking at an area where people can traverse either on a bicycle or walking, or mass transit. So mass transit not only has to be available, but has to take you pretty close to where you want to go so that people will use it. Incorporate food production in a city, and this could be rooftop gardens on apartment buildings. So that's always a possibility, and it does increase people's ability to get fresh foods. We talked about in the beginning how urbanization in these developing countries, people tend to go hungry, where in rural areas in developing countries they're at least farming and they have a little bit of food. So if this could be incorporated somehow for developing countries, it certainly would take some of the burden off of those people and some of the starvation out of the society. Not all of it, but some. When we talk about green architecture, we're talking about not just forming our city so that there's less carbon in the atmosphere, traffic patterns are easy to get around to, that it's pedestrian friendly, but you're also looking at the actual dwellings, whether it be an office building or a house. And the federal government has created Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, and you can get certifications for buildings if they're LEED certified, which means that they are energy efficient, that they have good indoor air quality, that they use some of the materials used to make them are reused materials, recycled materials, such as carpeting can be from recycled fabric, and sometimes recycled rubber can make carpet. Also, you're thinking about your water, so you want to maybe use a gray water system with building that, or use the toilets that are 1 flush, 2 flush, something like that. Trying to make the building as environmentally friendly as the surrounding area we've tried to do. This is just showing obviously very compact living. All of these are different apartments, and here we have, you can access this by boat, but you cannot access this by car. So you can walk out of your apartment and get the things that you need just right up and down the street. Curitiba in Brazil. This is your case in point in your chapter, and this is showing a diagram of using compact development and creating a mass transit system that works, a mass transit system that delivers people where they need to go with the least amount of time spent waiting on that mass transit. How do they get people to use it? Well, there's really nowhere to park cars, and there's some streets that access that main district in the middle that do not allow anything but buses and pedestrian traffic. So to get within that area, you're going to have to ride a bus. So, and it works very well. That is the end of chapter 10. See you in class.